welcome today. So what we want to talk about is computing science game over? From a curriculum perspective in Scotland, the education ecosystem, we want to have this entrepreneurial environment. There's so many employers in Scotland, but if we don't have the individuals actually coming through, the schools who are engaged and understand what opportunities technology offer, then we have a challenge. So, introductions. Myself, I'm Wallace. I'm the Chief Administration Officer for Technology Glasgow at Morgan Stanley. I sit on something called the Digital Tech Education Charter. I'm an advisory member, so hopefully when you came in, a number of you were hopefully given one of these leaflets. If not, you can pick them up again from the front or at the Morgan Stanley stand, of which we are one of the signatories. In my role at Morgan Stanley, I also sponsor our campus recruitment, and I sponsor our STEM Ambassador programme in terms of number of people going into schools and running cyber detective games or teaching people coding using Marty the Robot, etc. I will hand over to Toni.
Hi everyone, so Toni Scullion. I'm a computing science teacher by trade. I've recently moved into a new post, so I'm co-lead of Stacs, which is a new organisation called Scottish Teachers Advancing Computing Science. So that's off the back of the STARE report as well, which is really exciting. But I do wear lots of hats. So founder of dressCode, a non-profit charity to try and close the gender gap ultimately in computing science. And we're going to share with you some really depressing stats to show you basically the state of computing and where it is at grassroots level. And hopefully it'll give you a little bit more of an understanding of maybe why there's such a skill gap at industry. Because of what's happening at school level as well, but then also like things that we can do to try and change that. I also again founded the charter with help of Eve and others as well. The main aim of that as well is to try and bridge the gap between industry and education, because like Eve says, there are so many amazing opportunities in Scotland and the tech sector, but at education level, we really need to inspire the next generation and get more of that tech talent through. And then the other thing that I do as well is I also run Computing Science Scotland. So that is a grassroots initiative for teachers by teachers. So by bringing that and the charter together, it means that we've kind of got this opportunity to hopefully help influence, inspire the pupils who are going to be coming through the education system, but are also in the education system right now as well.
My intro definitely won't be as long as Toni's. My name's Lucy Gardner. I am a graduate apprentice, soon to be ex-graduate apprentice at Morgan Stanley. So I've been there for 4 years. I joined straight out of high school, so I was 17, straight out of 5th year into the workplace, working Monday to Thursday, and attending university 1 day a week. So I was able to get the 4 years experience alongside my degree at the same time. So saw me through loads of different roles within tech, not just software development, despite that being my degree title. So within that, I was then able to then go out to schools and promote graduate apprenticeships, because a lot of schools, even my school at the time, didn't know about it. My mum didn't know about it. And even going out now, some teachers and students are kind of like, sounds quite good. Like, wish I could do that when I was like back in my day. So yeah, trying to raise awareness about apprenticeships, different routes into technology. Don't just have to go to uni, it's not the be all and end all. Working again with primary school kids to get the route into that, like code clubs, start them into tech like as early as possible. Yeah, I guess.
All right, thank you. Now on to Toni, who will depress you.
I do other roles and make people sad, but basically, so this is, if you don't know much about the computing science education in Scottish schools, these are some stats. So you can see that we've got 65% of all pupils studying computing science, so the drop from 2001 until now, so it's dropped by that percentage. So we used to have around 28,000 pupils studying the subject, so that's all levels, but now we're just under 10,000. And again, the gender gap is huge as well. So you can see here that it used to be that we had around 10,000 girls, but now we're just under 2,000. And then again, the overall reduction of teachers as well. So everything is basically declining. So there used to be around 800 teachers, but now we've only got about 595 teachers. So being a computing science teacher, I can share a little bit about of what it's like on the grassroots, that things that aren't really captured on the slides. So it might surprise you. I was going to do a show of hands, but I genuinely can't really see anybody, so I'm just going to share. But basically, computing science is not a core subject, so it's not taught in every school. So remember, there's a big push in Scotland right now for STEM, which is amazing, but computing is part of that. So compared to the traditional STEM subjects, so we've got chemistry, biology, physics, maths, and we put computing alongside of that, computing science in Scotland has got the worst uptake by a mile. So you'll see the stats and the flyer if you've got it. And we have done for a long time. So the things I'm saying right now, it's not new. We've known about this for about 10 years, if not more. It's been declining. We've got the largest gender gap as well. So we've got the least amount of girls taking the subject. And we've also got the least amount of teachers as well. And it is not a core subject in every school. If you're lucky enough and your school or your kid's school or your niece or nephew or whoever's school has got computing science as well, it doesn't actually solve the problem, because right now, because there are so few computing science teachers, it means that some schools, so there's 38 weeks in a Scottish school year, some schools get only 1 period a week of computing science. That's only 38 periods. But a lot of schools actually, because we don't have the staff, end up having to rotate. So that means that there's still schools out there who only get 19 periods of computing science a year. And then to further add to that, not every school teaches computing science in first year, so you might only get to know about computing science when you're in S2 as well. And then there are incredible teachers out there obviously doing wonderful work, and hats off to the business teachers as well, because a lot of the time it rotates with business teachers as well, so you've got non-specialists teaching the subject, but again, full credit to them, and they're really holding up the subject as well. So when we share all this and the figures, and then you know that there is a shortage at industry level and skills gap and gender gap, it's not really surprising when you see these figures and you know all of this information and you think, oh, well, no wonder we've got this skills gap, because pupils who are in our classroom right now, and also the future generation coming through, don't all know about it. And Lucy's kind of touched upon it as well, that not all teachers know about all these amazing opportunities as well. And it's that whole thing of trying to bridge the gap between industry and education, empower our teachers, inform teachers, and inspire the next generation, the future generation, basically to try and flood this talent pipeline. But it's got to the point that if anybody goes onto the Charter website and looks at our tweets and things, there is news stories from 10 years ago declaring computing science as, you know, we're struggling. But we're still struggling, and it's got to a really critical point. And so I'm sure everybody knows the STER report and Mark Logan, and I think it was last year, he declared computing science as an emergency. That's what we're facing right now. If we want to inspire the next generation, have a thriving Scottish tech ecosystem, we need to address it at school level.
And I think, so just from a comparison sake, you will then see, if I click this is all other STEM. So during that same period of time, as Toni touched on, total pupil numbers have increased by a minimum of 40%, if not over 60%. And then the total female numbers have increased by a minimum of, I think that says 45%, if not over 65%. And then all subjects have got a minimum of 40% more teachers. Biology, chemistry, physics, maths. This is a computer science specific challenge. Now, what you will hear from later is there's a number of people who are studying STEM subjects who don't necessarily know that STEM but non-tech degrees and their way of thinking and logical expression, etc., that actually translates well to technology, but some of them aren't necessarily finding that out until during their degree or later on, etc. So there's a challenge. So it's not that STEM as a whole is declining, it's just computer science. So we're just going to talk through a table, I suppose. So this is a kind of walkthrough from primary school, then into the lower secondary and then upper secondary, and then at college or uni, and then experience versus reskill or retrain or kind of upskill. And the top row is, in essence, kind of suggestions, and then the bottom row are kind of facts, so kind of did you know. So I'm going to cover primary, and then Toni and Lucy are going to do the secondary sections, and then Lucy and I are going to do the kind of college uni, and then I'll do the kind of experience reskill point. So just on primary, there's I won't necessarily list every single thing, but the did you know point is around that. So NYU and Princeton did a little bit of research, or a big bit of research in 2019, that identified that if you talk to kids using action-focused language, which is doing science, instead of identity-focused language of being scientists, they are materially more likely to remain engaged with the subject, but particularly girls, because it's just an action. So if you know that, then the language that we use with our young people, it shouldn't take a 2-letter difference in one word to have an impact. But because we know that, actually, how can we try and change that? So there's research that identifies that kids quite often at the kind of age 5, 6-ish already have an idea of what they might want to do or be when they grow up. So there are some ideas that are entrenched. How do we try and overcome that? And I think at this early stage, there's a lot around positive language. It's technology is everything for everyone. It is everywhere. It is inclusive. It's not just a boys' subject or whatever that involves. How do we have, or introduce rather, like early concepts in the classroom early on? How do we support teachers with that effort? So we can start from a very early stage around starting to influence and impact young people accordingly. I might have missed something, but well, I need new glasses and it's quite far away, so apologies. Toni, Lucy?
Yeah, so for secondary as well, so I'll talk about like a teaching perspective, and then Lucy obviously has got her personal journey. There's so many opportunities, and although the figures and the statistics there are shocking, quite frankly, and have been declining again for a very long time, there's actually so many opportunities and things that we can do. Advocate, obviously, first of all, keep the conversation going, but then when you're in the classroom, like Eva said, their parents and adults are such big influencers at a young age, so being positive about it and having those conversations, raising their awareness as well. So a little bit of background, I used to work at St Kentigern's Academy in West Lothian, and I was just saying to Lucy that people, even when I was teaching, they were like, oh, I can't work in tech, I wouldn't go to Glasgow, I've never been to Edinburgh, I've never been abroad. But what they don't realise as well is that all these amazing opportunities are actually on their doorstep. You've got Sky, Oracle, SBRC, so it's to try and raise awareness of that and have all these role models. Now, I'm sure, and I've seen plenty and spoke to lots of people today, you're all role models, like you're all amazing, and you're here today because you care, and it's to try and capture those stories and share them. Also careers fairs as well, so like if you're in industry, like reach out to schools, go into schools, do careers talks, because that's one thing that like teachers, majority of teachers don't come from an industry background, so we need to leverage and build that gap. But yeah, there's lots of opportunities, and like Eva says on the slide there, it does kind of go over inspiring people at every age and every stage. It's not good enough to inspire a pupil in S1. We need to keep inspiring them into S2, S3, even primary, all the way up. And then when they are in industry and you become a Lucy, then how do you then go back and feed in and then inspire the next generation? So yeah, that's kind of, there are amazing opportunities out there, and I'm more than happy to discuss more as well, but I'll let Lucy kind of talk about her personal journey as well.
Yeah, just to talk a wee bit on primary schools as well, like when we go in to do code clubs, so it's essentially a few Morgan Stanley employees or STEM employees go into a primary school, host a code club, so we take, it's a full day, it tends to be a full day event, can be as little as primary 2, all the way to primary 7, of course different difficulty, but they essentially use, similar to Scratch, little code blocks with instructions on it, and it's just getting them that logical thinking and programming in a sense that, and they pick it up so quickly, and even the teachers are amazed at how they can do it, and they're like, oh, I would struggle to do this, I don't know how the kids are doing it, and they think, oh, is this free? Like, can they access this all the time? Can they access it in the house? And it's just planting that seed, like you feel that you've made such an impact in just that one day, so, and you can see how enthusiastic the children are about it. So that's, again, primary school, you get that planting the seed, so then when they go to high school, they think, how do I keep doing that? I really enjoy that. Do I pick computing science? And then when I was in school, from the schools in my area, I picked my subjects from second year, so it was quite early, and I remember even the teachers and parents thinking, God, you're only like 13, how are you supposed to pick your subjects? How are you going to know what you want to do? Whereas some of my friends at other schools didn't pick their subjects until they were sitting in an exam. So, it was quite very different. But as Toni said, like when you're 13, you've not got a lot of influence in terms of you don't really probably know what you want to do, so you're only kind of immediate influence. What do my parents do? What do my family do? What do my teachers do? What do I know exists as a job? So it's so important to have that influence, as Toni said, at an early age, because if you pick the wrong subject, or at that age you tend to just pick what you enjoy. So if you already know that you enjoy computing science, then that's going to be like something you're going to pick. Whereas if you've not done it before, you're not interested, you're not going to pick it because you're going to go, oh, I don't know what that is. Like, not doing that. So it's like really important to get that seed planted super early, and then going into secondary school, like higher up, it's the same kind of influence, I guess, as well. For me, I knew that I wanted to. I was really lucky. I had a female computing science teacher, which was excellent. I was only one of 2 girls in the higher computing science. I think I was the only one to sit the exam as well. But we had a talk from a visitor who was actually an ex-pupil at my high school, came back to kind of say, this is what I came from this high school and this is what I'm doing now. And I was like, and even my friends were like, Lucy, that's going to be you. And I was like, that is going to be me. And then it was me. Ended up going into that route. So yeah, and I mean, if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't have twigged like, oh, there's different opportunities. I probably would have gone to university, stuck at university, and then gone the kind of stereotypical, not that there's anything wrong with that, but gone through the stereotypical route and not done, be where I am today.
Just a couple of things, partly because I forgot to say them. One thing that's really important is, particularly at an early age, but all the way through, is that kind of thematic thinking. So lots of people think that technology, development or engineering, etc., is all sitting in a room coding, whereas actually from an early stage principal perspective, how do we get people to think, actually, you like being logical, or you're organised, or you like being creative, you like solving problems. All of these things are fundamental building blocks as such. So back to the what do you enjoy doing concept is really important. And I think on the kind of what jobs exist, I mean, there's certainly more jobs that exist now than when I was at school a number of years ago. But I think what's also really important is so I'm a bit of a sports fan, kind of lots of activity in our house. Not me, I'm not particularly active, just lots of watching, but my children and my husband are very active. And I think if you watch, so just using football as an example, when you watch after match analysis and you see all this data on like how far players have run or how hard a tennis ball's been hit, all that kind of thing, how do you think that works? Like for kids who are interested in sport but don't necessarily think they're interested in technology, actually that has to be designed. How do you make it a wearable tech to be attached to players? How does that actually then transmit? How do you make it instantaneous? All those kind of things, as well as if you're interested in sustainability, or if you're interested in like medicine, for example, but you may not want to be a doctor. Actually, there are a number of things around, well, how do you better have tools for, I don't know, cracking someone's ribs, or all these kind of things. These are all technological developments, but how do we actually make people aware that all these opportunities actually exist? So just going to kind of college, uni, I suppose, Lucy, your experience?
Yeah, sure. I guess my experience is slightly different to your average student. So went straight out of high school, straight 17 into the workplace, straight to University of Strathclyde. So I've just graduated as of June time, or my dissertation was June.
With a first class degree.
Oh. Yeah, so my graduation isn't until Halloween. So, but yeah, so it was a 1 day a week course. So it was all based online, videos. Never actually attended a lecture in my life. Never attended a tutorial in my life. It was all just videos. And on a Friday, got day release from work and could go and get support, speak to our fellow students and things. So that was really helpful. But so I guess when COVID hit, it was kind of, everyone was like, oh, how are you finding uni? I was like, it's the same, still online, it's just the same thing. So I was quite fortunate. But yeah, I guess, I mean, some people have said if we didn't have the workplace, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed my degree, probably might not have even stuck at my degree, because you do all these things and you go, what am I using this for? Like, why am I learning this? And then, but instead I would go and learn it and then go into work and go, I've actually just learned about that. Or the things that you would do in work would be 10 times harder that you'd be learning at uni. So uni would seem like a scoosh because you'd be using all this stuff at work. So yeah, it was a really great experience. Very different, I guess, from your average student life, because you had to work Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday. So no freshers week for me, no making the use of the students. But it's worth it, I guess. We had people come to, so I discovered Morgan Stanley through my school's Twitter actually tweeted about Morgan Stanley's open evening in regard to the apprenticeship. Went along to that, and I guess that was, I went home and applied like that night. I'd already applied to other apprenticeships, but just liked the feel of Morgan Stanley. And it was just like, if they hadn't had that open evening, I probably wouldn't have, got the feel for it and loved it. But there's just so many different ways to go into university and different routes, and there's just still that enigma around it. Like, people ask me, oh, so what's your degree in? Or what do you do? And as soon as I say, oh, I'm software development, they're like, really? It's like, yeah, why is that surprising? I'm quite offended by that. But yeah, there's just still that enigma around it. But yeah, so even on that open evening, there was current apprentices, bring their parents and things. And even the parents say, like, but do you not regret, like, not being a student? I am a student. And she's like, yeah, but I really enjoyed being a student, like, really liked going out. And I was like, no, because look at what I've got 4 years experience at 21. So no, I don't regret it. Even my own mum was saying to me when I left in 5th year, I really enjoyed 6th year. Like, I worked so hard in my 5th year. I enjoyed for 6th year, did all these crash subjects, like mucked about for a year. You sure you don't want to do that? You sure you want to leave? It's like, yeah, yeah, Mum, I think I do. Yeah, I think I do want to go and work for this like global company. Like, so, and here I am. So yeah, great.
I think Lucy's brilliant, puts everyone else to shame, including me. But I think just kind of on that, if you then think, so we are fortunate. So basically, if you live in the central belt of Scotland, there are any number, or major cities, you're surrounded by major organisations. So the point on the kind of how do you support schools in Scotland, if you're not in the central belt, your access to people coming in, computer science teachers, people from organisations, running code clubs, all that sort of stuff, it's potentially you're at a deficit. So what does an overarching framework look like? So regardless of your location in Scotland, be you in Dumfries or Dunfermline or Elgin, etc., how do you support that through being able to have like a resource library or stuff that's supported online? If there's a short-term challenge, and there is with teachers, then how can that be supported from an industry perspective? As well as then what does longer-term solutions actually look like? And then just for a kind of personal point, so as I said, I sponsor our campus recruitment, and we see so many young people who they do STEM but non-tech degrees, but they don't necessarily know that they can do technology and how actually transferable it is. There's a lot of unis who are brilliant from a scholarship support perspective. The increasing diversity demographic is needed from a technological development perspective, and is much required. But a lot of it then comes back to that kind of role modelling point, like who do you actually see, how do you know what you can do, etc. And that kind of positive language, but also like social currency. My children say sick, but it's actually cool. Things that you need to kind of get on top of. How do you make computer science and tech actually have that? And then the latter kind of box is around kind of people experienced, or people who are looking to retrain or restart or kind of upskill, etc. What does that actually look like? Number of people who are ex-forces, or they want to change their degree, they've done a degree but now they want to retrain, or they're on or they would like a return to work program, etc. All of these routes are other opportunities to get people into the tech industry. And I think hopefully what's come across through this is that there needs to be the influence and impact at every single stage, and all of us, be parents, aunts, uncles, friends, peers, etc., we all have a huge role to play within that space. So just before we move off this slide, Toni, what have I missed?
You can move. I've got a good ending if you want.
Oh, excellent.
So this is a quote from Mark Logan's STIR report. So again, everybody's a winner. It's not about me having the best and the most amount of kids coming through my school. It's about, as a country, how many pupils can we get into this tech ecosystem, because it really does matter. Now, this isn't a future problem we're talking about either. We're talking about right now. They're in the classroom, they're there to be inspired, and everybody's got a role to play. And like that, I think Mark sums it up pretty nicely. Like, the more pupils and children and girls and everybody that we can get through at that level, everybody wins. So it's not about them all going to Morgan Stanley or having the best amount of people coming through my school. It's as a country, collectively, how can we all have that responsibility and inspire and pretty much try and solve this gender gap, but save the subject, because you've seen the figures have been declining for more than 10 years and we're at a critical point. So like we will be at the Morgan Stanley stand if you want to talk about it further as well, but we're really passionate about it, and a lot of the things that we do, and I do personally as well, it's in my own time, I'm not getting paid for it, it's just about finding people and finding ways in, and there's plenty of opportunities, and I think we've got good connections as well, so please help, I suppose.
Hopefully so obviously we started with game over, but hopefully the whole construct of the talk was actually how do we restart? And every single person who's here today, and the purpose of creating I don't know what it's called, I want to call it a gatefold, but it's not, it looks like a menu, I suppose. The purpose of creating this, for those who've not seen it, is the inside there's a whole load of like resources. So the discover bit is like stuff for kids, resources like websites, how you can learn. There's a whole tech for teachers thing, so an acknowledgement that you want the curriculum to be interesting and you want it to be kept up to date, but teachers don't necessarily have the time to do that. How do we support them with that? So there's something that's like, it teaches computational thinking, but using fairy tales, for example, like loads of totally random examples. But then there's also a section which is help. That is, how can you help? Do you or your firm, do you offer apprenticeships? Can you mentor individuals or via a program? Do you offer internships? Do you offer grad roles? Are you a registered STEM ambassador? Or are your team, can you go into schools, etc.? And while there needs to be an en masse kind of rising tide lifts all boats, actually it also just starts here with us as individuals. So as Toni mentioned, we will be at the Morgan Stanley stand for most of the rest of the afternoon if anyone wants to come and follow up on this. Otherwise, I'd recommend you check out the Digital Tech Education Charter and sign up, get involved, and otherwise pick up one of these leaflets because they're beautiful. Well, I think they're beautiful. I say that, Toni did all the work. And otherwise, just follow up with it. Thank you all for listening today and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Thank you.